The money is insane, and the hotel, the hotel charges you for everything. I think they charge for oxygen in this hotel, and so, but we got it done. So the convention is this weekend. It starts Friday. It's Friday, October 29th through November 1st, and you can go to allblacknationalconvention.com. That's allblacknationalconvention.com, and we did a really good job for you this year. We have 61 speakers, and we have so many great people that I can't even begin to talk about how amazing they are. Like, so for example, one person I hadn't I hadn't had a chance to talk about at all this week is Chris Davis. And Chris Davis, you guys might have seen Chris when he came to the Black Business School. Chris Davis is literally, arguably, the number one business automation specialist on the planet. Big companies, like Lead Pages and stuff like that, reach out to him to basically help them make $1 billion moves. Like, he actually puts together automation systems for them that have made hundreds of millions of dollars. So he's just one of a gazillion people that are coming. We have this really super agent, this sports agent named Andre Odom out of Philadelphia, who represents a lot of big name athletes and things like that. And there's a long list, and I'll tell you more about that in a second. All right, so let me ask you guys, how are your stocks doing this week? Are you making money, losing money? What does that look like for you? Let me know, and I'd like to start there in terms of what the big picture of the market is. Right now, the stock market is very solid. There's a lot of money being made. Tesla is now a $1 trillion company. I don't know if you guys know that or not. And even today, the Dow went up another 138 points. It's at a massive record of 35,879. Now, one thing I want to impress upon you is that if you were to look at the Dow, say 5 years ago. 5 years is not a long time. I mean, 5 years ago is what, 2016, right? How many of you can remember 2016 like it was yesterday? Give me a yes or no if you can remember 2016 like it was yesterday. um well, remember in 2016 the Dow was at 18,000. So basically the market in 5 years, according to the Dow as a measuring stick, has actually doubled in value. Now I want you to show me any place where you could go and buy a house and have it double in value. I want you to show me any place you could buy damn near any asset you can think of and have it double in value. That's extremely rare. And the other interesting thing too is, the more I think about it, the more I think. And by the way, if you have a question, I see your question, Courtney. Put your question in the Q&A section. That way I can see it. And so the one other thing about stocks that's interesting is, there was a meme, and I put this meme up on my Instagram because I kind of agreed with it, but I wanted to dissect it a little bit. And basically, it was a statement someone made where they said that inflation, when the Fed creates inflation, that inflation is basically designed to make the rich richer and the poor poorer. And I agree with that statement. Working class people lose from inflation. Why? Well, because workers' wages have remained very flat, and whereas inflation has caused the price of everything to go up and the value of everything to go up, right? So if you own assets, or if you sell products, then you're going to make money from inflation because your products that you sell go up in price, and the value of the assets you won't go up in price. Whereas working class people, in many cases, don't own a lot of don't own a lot of anything, right? And that makes sense, right? But really, instead of saying that inflation makes rich people richer, really a more accurate way to describe that would be to say that inflation makes investors richer. Now, here's the thing: you don't have to be rich to be an investor. A person who was, say, working class, like say Andre Hatchett. Andre Hatchett talked about when he used to make about $15 an hour, and he bought his first property when he was making $15 an hour. He wasn't rich, but he was an investor. So when a lot of other guys were taking their money and doing whatever with it, just taking it and spending it, Andre was thinking about, well, where can I plant my extra money? Right, the money I would have spent going to the club, let me invest some of that. The money I would have spent, going out to eat, let me invest some of that. The money I would have spent chasing another girl, let me invest some of that. So Andre bought a house very young in New York, on his $15 an hour salary. And that house value goes up, right? So he then benefits from inflation, right? A lot of inflation that occurs is really, it translates into what they call asset inflation, which means that the prices of assets go up. If you buy a house, the value of the house goes up. If you own stock, the value of that stock goes up, right? So where am I getting at with this? Well, one of the things I can tell you with 100% certainty is that when you when you don't invest at all, like, and this is something you have to share with your relatives who are still apprehensive about investing or don't trust investing, or maybe they do it a little bit, but they might buy some Dogecoin and that's it, or they'll sprinkle a little bit of money on their investments, but spend big money at the mall, spend big money at Christmas. Think about how much we do, how much spending we do at Christmas time alone, right? All the toys and the shopping and everything else, and that's fine. But remember that when you're not participating in the ownership of assets, inflation does harm you because your salary isn't going up. You know, wages are not going up. That we've talked about that. I've explained to you the dynamics of that. A lot of it's political. In the 1970s, a lot of the right wingers who tend to protect the corporations, they pretty much got involved in politics and they started buying up all the politicians. So now your politicians haven't increased the minimum wage for a long time, even though most Americans, have always felt the minimum wage should be increased. But they'll say, oh, well, corporations can't afford to pay their workers more money. That's not true. They can afford it. The reason I know they can afford it is because you see corporate profits going up. Profits are the money corporations make after they pay all their expenses. They pay their workers and they pay for their materials and all the other stuff. Well, their profits, are very high, and their profit growth rate has been insanely high. So, if your profits are going up, then that means you can't afford to pay your workers more, but you only pay them what you have to pay them, right? So if there are if there are no labor unions for me to deal with, then guess what? I don't have to pay as much. If I can bring in workers from Mexico, like crazy, then I don't have as much to pay. If I can globalize and put my factories in China and Vietnam, I don't have to pay as much, right? If I can also move my corporate headquarters to the tax havens around the world, I can, Apple can have their headquarters in Ireland, even though they do most of their business in the United States. Well, I don't have to pay as much, in taxes either. So ultimately, corporations the wealthy have kind of done a number on the country, and so if you want to ask my opinion. I think on the right, you tend to see protection of wealthy people and corporations. That's kind of what the Republicans do. On the left, you see a lot of an awkward social engineering. That the left tends to get into social issues, whether it's LGBT, transgender, things like that. And so ultimately, I would say that if you're talking about just taking care of your family, I don't really know how you necessarily benefit from politics per se, but I can say that at the end of the day, you got to position yourself where you will benefit from what the country's already doing. Inflation is not going anywhere. Labor unions and all that. I don't know if that's coming back anytime soon, but in general, you have to invest so that when asset values go up and prices go up, your wealth, your net worth will go up, and you got to invest for your children. I mean, that's so important. You literally, if you are a person of vision and you care about your kids, you can literally do basic things right now, like the $5 a day investing program, which I actually give you guys access to in the blackstockmarketprogram.com. You can literally do stuff for your kids where, your child at 25 or 30 years old could make as much money as a surgeon literally on his app every morning. Like he could literally do, pay himself with his stocks every day or every week or every month and make as much money as a doctor without going to college, without going to medical school, without going through all the hell of becoming a doctor, and that's massive, right? Because I remember thinking I had to trade a decade of my life in order to get a PhD so I can make a certain amount of money. But if my parents had understood, say, investing back, when I was a kid, and had put just a little money, had taken, say, the same amount of money they spend on toys and football uniforms and everything else, and if they had put that same amount of money in the stock market for me, by the time I was 25, I would have had enough money to the point where I would never have to work for anybody ever in my life if I didn't want to, right? So just understand that, right? So there's two ways to make money in America. You can either make money from your assets, and if you have no assets to make money from, then your body becomes the asset. Your labor becomes the asset. Your time becomes the asset that you have to sell. So that's why you get to the point where people that are financially desperate, they have to do things like sell their time, their labor, their bodies, and even sell their happiness, right? So give your kids access to happiness. It's not just a financial thing. It's really just a well-being thing. All right. So anyway, let me answer a couple questions. Let me see here. Margaret, it took me a while to log on. Did we have issues? Yeah, the issue is that your teacher overslept. I laid down I woke up early this morning and I started working on stuff, because we're getting ready for the convention this week. And I laid down for a minute next to Alicia, and I got to cuddling. I'm a cuddler. I love my wife, and next thing I know, I was just gone, and I just didn't wake up. And I said, "Oh my God!" And I just, I was embarrassed. I hate when people do that to me. So I apologize if you felt like I wasted your time. Please forgive me for that. Francis, what do you think about VeChain, cryptocurrency getting Chinese support to fight against fraud? Ironic. I don't know much about VeChain. I can't speak to VeChain. If you want to submit the question for next week, I can do some research and give you my 2 cents. I don't think I invested in VeChain. I tend to focus on the top cryptos, a lot of Bitcoin, a lot of Ethereum. If you look right now, at Bitcoin and everything else, I mean, the crypto market is just, it's beautiful right now. I mean, so much money is being made. And what's ridiculous about it is that all this money probably could have been made sooner, but the crypto market just kind of took that nosedive, for that 2-3 year period. We had like I guess they call it crypto winter, and it was pretty ugly. But I'm looking at Bitcoin right now. It's down a little bit today, but I mean, this past month, it's gone up. Wait, huh? Oh, 45%. Sorry, I looked at this wrong. Yeah, it went up from 40,000. It was at 40,000 a month ago. Now it's at 61,000. That's a big freaking deal. That's a massive deal. That's a hell of a lot of money. And over the past year, it's gone up 374%. So it's not, maybe it's not the number one investment out there, but that's the one everybody's kind of betting on. And I kind of feel like Bitcoin is getting more widespread adoption. The more widespread adoption you have of a currency, the higher the value of the currency goes up. Well, why is that? Well, because basically currency. You can think of like a currency of whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, or even a nation's currency like the yen or the euro. Think of it like a club, right? Okay, so let me explain. Think of it like a club, or think of it like or you think about these video games, right? Like Rockstar Games has a really popular game called Grand Theft Auto, and I'm a fan of video games. It's the thing I do to relax now. I had to find something to do instead of working all the time, so I started getting back into video games. I used to love them back in the day, and I started studying the economies of video games, and so Rockstar Games has a game called Grand Theft Auto, and in this game, you can buy, um, stuff in the virtual world. It's not even real, right? But you feel like it's real because because they make the world so realistic. So if you want to, you can buy a nightclub with say a 10 car garage and put 10 sports cars in your garage, where each sports car costs $3 million a piece, right? So what they'll say is to buy this, $60 million nightclub, it'll cost you $50 in the real world, right? So they give you like a little credit card, and then they'll say to buy, this $3 million sports car, it'll cost you $15, right? So you're not really paying millions of dollars for this, but you're paying real money, right? Real money for something that is basically kind of a computer program, access to a computer algorithm, and so the reason Rockstar Games becomes so wealthy, and the reason that their little digital currency, their fake currency, has value, is because there's demand for the game. The more people that want to get into this digital world, the more value their digital currency has. The more people want to get into their club, which is, the people that are in the Rockstar Games video game world, the more people that want to get into the club, the more they can charge for, a fake Ferrari and a, $60 million garage, club or whatever, right? Same thing is true for a lot of these video games. Call of Duty. You guys have seen me play Call of Duty. I love Call of Duty. It's a lot of fun. You get to kill people when you don't have to go to jail. And so the no, right? Maybe I need to talk to my therapist about that, huh? And by the way, every black person needs a therapist, by the way, because we know y'all know we crazy because we have been through a lot of hell and trauma. So if you're struggling in your life, let me just give you a little piece of information. Best investment advice you'll ever make is an investment in yourself or an investment in your relationships. There are therapists that can help you overcome all your own BS that's stopping you from becoming the person you want to be. Most of us know what we can accomplish, but we also have psychological barriers that stop us. A good therapist will help you decompose your own bullshit, excuse my French, so that you can become the person you're meant to be. So I'm a big believer in therapy, and I have no shame in talking about the fact that I love talking to therapists. They're my favorite people. So with that said, let's go back again. Let's back up. So basically, think of a digital currency like joining a special club or any currency, not just digital. And so the more people that want to get into the club, well, the higher you can charge to get into the club, right? Like I showed you guys a video. I put it on my Instagram where I was standing outside the Gucci store. I went to the mall with Alicia last week, and we were walking through this fancy mall with all these stores. They have this really nice stuff, but I can't buy it. I can't, we walked in Bloomingdale's, and I was like, I can't. I can probably afford $150 shirt, but I don't want $150 shirt. I don't. There's nothing about $150 shirt that does anything for me. To be honest with you, like this shirt I'm wearing, I probably got it at Walmart for like $15, right? So so I didn't buy anything. Only thing I bought in the mall was a pretzel, but we walked around. And Alicia had to get some stuff because we're having a ball. We're having a formal B1 ball at a gala at the convention. So I was walking and I saw the Gucci store. And this goes back to my point about digital currency. I promise is a point to my crazy stories. So I'm walking by the Gucci store and I see this long line of people standing outside of Gucci. And I was like, why are those people in line at the Gucci store? And then I looked inside the Gucci store and there weren't that many people inside the store. So I'm like, they don't have those people standing outside the store because they have to be out there and there's no COVID protocol. Like all the other stores were letting people in, but the Gucci store told you got to wait outside, right? There's more people outside the store than there were inside the store. I saw the same thing at the Coach store. I saw the same thing at the Prada store. And what they were doing basically was they were basically increasing the perceived value of their product by creating demand, right? If there wasn't real demand, they would create artificial demand or the perception of demand. And they know that people aren't really critical thinkers. So they're going to, implicitly and perhaps subconsciously believe, well, because all these people are waiting in line to get into this club, then whatever is inside this club must have a lot of value, right? And so basically with cryptocurrency, when you circle back to the point I was making before about Bitcoin and Ethereum, I believe that over time, you're going to have more people trying to get into this club. And so that means more demand for Bitcoin, more uses for Bitcoin, more desire to obtain Bitcoin. Well, one thing about Bitcoin is that the demand and the supply are not balanced. There's a lot more demand than there is supply. Most Bitcoin, I think about 70, 80%, if I'm not mistaken, of all the Bitcoin in existence is literally locked up in somebody's account. Like people are just holding it. They're just like, well, Bitcoin's at 61,000. I'm gonna wait till it gets to 150,000 before I sell. So as the demand goes up, if you look at the supply demand curve in economics, basically when demand goes up, if supply remains constant, then the price goes up, right? So that's why I'm a big believer in Bitcoin. I like Ethereum just because I think the attraction of getting into that club is the Ethereum network and all the different apps and things like that you can put on the Ethereum blockchain and all that. So those are the two I kind of invest most of my money in. I dabble in the other ones. I own probably about 15 different cryptos, but those are my top two. Like I get extra money, I put it in those two because those are just surefire, winners. It's like, betting on back in the day, it's like back in the day betting on the New England Patriots to, get to the playoffs in football. It's almost always going to happen. Or the betting on the Chicago Bulls in the 1990s. Like Bitcoin and Ethereum are kind of like what Jordan and Pippen were to the Bulls back in in the 1990s. Okay, so anyway, let me keep going. Let me see here. So Sion says, what investment platform and app do you use? There's a lot out there. Let's see, are they all relatively the same, or are some better than others? There's a lot out there. I use Robinhood, Acorns. Let me see, Stash, E-Trade, and I have Merrill Lynch. I have money in Merrill Lynch and some other stuff. But there's so many others. Fidelity is good. I've heard good things about Webull. I don't use it though. TD Ameritrade isn't bad. A lot of the platforms are also nice because they do have an educational component if you want to dig into that as well, a research component. So there's a lot there in terms of the different apps. So it's really a matter of maybe trying some different apps just to see which one works best for you. The biggest thing too is be very careful about putting all your money into one account or into one app, because remember, you're leaning on technology. Technology can go bad. Things can happen. I just think about it, and I just think about like the fact that I wonder, if something could ever happen that just takes out the entire internet and you can't access any of your money, you can't access any of your resources. I hope that doesn't happen, but I think about those things. So you got to process that. That's a risk factor as well. Everything that can affect your money is a risk, and you want to think about as many risks as you possibly can. Let's see. Can you talk a little bit about mRNA? That's a stop from Moderna. I can if you send it next week, submit your question in advance. Log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com. Send that question in advance. I'll do my research on the Moderna stock. Basically, with Moderna, the basic point I'll make on that is that's been a great company to make money. My investment advisor put me in Moderna back at the beginning of the pandemic, and I didn't even know that he put me in there. And we made a lot of money from that. And so, Moderna is a company that, it's like Mike Jones back then. They didn't want me. Now I'm hot. They all on me. Well, Moderna was a nobody before the pandemic. The pandemic really led to the rise of a lot of companies that maybe were struggling financially. A lot of people benefited from the pandemic. A lot of certain countries benefited, certain companies benefited, and then some people lost. Let's see here. Margaret says, I just hate to miss any of this information. Well, I hate to miss you too, Margaret, and I love you very much. I'm very happy that you're here, and I appreciate your patience. Thank you for your very kind words. Dr. Shawnee says, I joined the cryptocurrency Forex course for the $51, but have not received a link to participate. Oh, well, you know what? Here's what you can do to get to connect with the crypto club. First of all, you can log in. Like if you just log in at theblackbusinessschool.com, theblackbusinessschool.com, your courses that you signed up for will all pop up, and you'll have access to everything that's there. So with the crypto club, there's a lot of material that they put right there that either includes structured material to help you with your basic learning, or material that includes recordings of every single class session, every single expert, every single discussion, every single meeting of the Black Crypto Club. The Black Crypto Club meets once a month. They send out emails to all the students when they meet once a month. If you ever have any questions about anything in the Black Business School, our customer service team is extremely good and extremely responsive. So just write this email down. It's support@theblackbusinessschool.com. Somebody's type that in, please, so others can see it. It's support@theblackbusinessschool.com. Support@theblackbusinessschool.com. Okay, so I want to make sure it's out there with you guys that we do have a great support team, because I want you to be 100% happy. And if you're not happy, we give refunds very generously. We have no problem working with you to make sure that you get exactly what you're looking for. Okay, so I want to make sure that's 100% clear. And also, you'll get a chance to talk to a lot of the faculty from the Black Business School at the convention this week. Allblacknationalconvention.com is the URL for the convention. And so just to give you an idea of some of the heavyweights at the convention, I mentioned to you guys Chris Davis, and the guy who's literally one of the leading automation experts in the country. There's another great guy named Dr. Adrian Carter, who's a great he's a trained mediator and facilitator and executive coach, but he also wrote a great book called on love, marriage, and relationships called Let's Get Married and Do Everything Except Make It Last. And he's just super smooth. He's super smart. I've seen him on a lot of occasions, and I'm really honored to have him. Attorney Nicole Compton is our business startup specialist in the Black Business School. She's been a lawyer for over 20 years, and she's helped thousands of our students get their businesses off the ground. There are students that came out of the Black Business School who are doing extremely well right now, and Attorney Nicole Compton worked with a lot of them. We also are going a little bit into all the spaces where Black people are going to need help in terms of survival. So the All Black National Convention isn't just a business conference. It is a conference on pretty much everything Black people need, right? So it's like, okay, let's get experts together so we can really talk about these things. So we actually invited a guy named Maj Toure, who runs Black Guns Matter, and he does gun training, right? Because a lot of people have talked about security. What happens if you go and you decide to buy a bunch of farmland and you start a community? Well, you got to be able to defend whatever you build. If you can't defend it, then you won't keep it for very long, right? We know what happened with Black Wall Street and all that stuff. So we talk about Black survivalism and security, especially now because a lot of Black folks are losing their jobs because whatever their status is on the jab and things like that. And then people just want to leave the corporate plantation. Right now, we're in the middle of the Great Resignation, where millions of people are quitting their jobs, which is a dream come true for me because I've been talking to you guys about the corporate plantation. Remember, we started the Black Wealth Bootcamp about 6-7 years ago, and I remember saying, I hope I can convince people how much of your life that you're losing when you get up and go to work every day. Like, it's not natural for you to spend 10 hours a day at a factory or at a job and then not spend hardly any time with your own kids. The number one job of a parent, in my view, is to be a parent, because you're planting the seeds for the next generation. So we cover a lot of Black survivalism, not everything from starting your own business to educating your own kids, to creating your own opportunities, your own job. Brother Nuri Muhammad is going to be one of our keynotes. He is a leader in the Nation of Islam and extremely, extremely smart. And just, I mean, this guy's so brilliant that I didn't even tell him what I wanted him to talk about because I know he's going to come up with something great. People like Vicky Dillard. Vicky's very well known, very respected. King Randall's interesting because he's 21 years old and he actually started a school with almost nothing. So he started the X School for Boys in Albany, Georgia. And he represents, he and Rizza Islam, in my view, are two of the greatest young Black leaders in the country in terms of men that really carry themselves with the kind of dignity that the Black man deserves. They also they're not flimsy, they're leaders, they're smart, they're critical thinkers, and they're courageous. And these were guys that I wanted to be involved with the convention as well. So that gives you some idea of some of the people that'll be at the convention. There's a long list of 61 speakers, but that's about 4 of them. So let's see here. All right, so next question is, let's see. Yorley says, Dr. Boyce, do you set up stop losses on all your stocks via your mobile platforms daily? No, I do not. I do not set up consistent stop losses, but that is a good way. Like if you get to a point where your stock has just shot through the roof and you're making a bunch of money, you can set up a stop loss order. And if you log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com, I show you exactly how that works. But you can set up a stop loss order where basically you just tell it like, look, if my stock drops below this particular point, go ahead and get me out of that stock, right? And that really is more of a philosophy of investing. Some people are traders. Some people want to gunsling and move their stocks around a lot. Some people are more passive. Like me and my wife did this silly, funny little cartoon. If you go to the the real Boyce Watkins on Instagram, you can see it. But we created this funny little 2-minute cartoon where we were going back and forth about stocks and our different interests. And so Alicia thinks the stocks are very boring. They're not interesting to her, but she had a great father who was also a professor like me. We tend to marry our parents. My mother looks like Alicia and is in the same profession as my wife, and I have the same profession as her father. I kid you not. Her father's a professor too, and her father got her to invest in stocks, and she did it because that's what her dad told her to do. But she never had any interest in it, right? She made a lot of money, probably because her so-called ignorance of stocks and her lack of interest was actually a benefit. That was actually an asset, because sometimes if you don't know when you are supposed to be afraid, then you just remain consistent, right? So what happened was she invested a lot of money right when the stock market crashed in 2007. So let me tell you the difference between being really smart and being too smart. Alicia's a smart lady, but she didn't pay attention to the stock market. She saw it drop. She knew her dad told her to invest consistently, and she just kept doing the same thing. So what happened was just like the pandemic, she bought a ton of stock at a very cheap price. So she was going into the market when everyone else was running out. So the people that thought they were smart were saying, "Oh my God, I'm scared. I don't want to lose my money." So they were reacting either because they thought they were avoiding something bad, or they were just afraid, right? She didn't even know enough to know that maybe she should be afraid. So she just kept investing consistently. So she was going in when everybody else was going out. Well, that allowed her to make a ton of money, because basically the 2007 crash, if you look at a diagram, if I were to show you a chart of the Dow Jones Industrial Average back, around 2007 when the crash occurred. In fact, let me show you all a chart of this. I mean, this is kind of crazy. I really want you to try to meditate on having the kind of vision necessary to allow you to see these trends before they happen, so you don't sort of look at it after the fact. But go back to 2007. The Dow Jones Industrial Average around 2007, or actually, let's look at the dip. The dip, actually, the most precise part of the dip. I said 2007. I meant to say 2009. So 2008, 2009, right when Obama got into office. So right around his inauguration, you see that the Dow was at 85.99. 85.99. So look at the Dow now. Now the Dow is at 35,848. So it went from 8,500 to 35,000. What's that, about a fourfold increase, or more than a fourfold, almost fivefold? So basically, sometimes just being consistent and not overthinking it is actually the best way to invest. So if the stock market makes you nervous or makes you panic or whatever, just pick a strategy and stick with it. Don't stress yourself out by overthinking everything. I can tell you, as a person who has overthought everything, I thought about the market from so many different angles you can't even imagine. You have no idea how hard it was to get a PhD in finance. It's like the difference between, like, some people can invest and they feel like they understand stocks because they know how to buy a stock. To compare that to like doctoral level work, it's like the difference between knowing how to drive a car versus knowing how to design, a new age electric vehicle and build that vehicle, manufacture that vehicle from scratch, right? Like literally, we didn't just understand the market. We understand the mathematical theory and the fundamental building blocks that even develop the infrastructure necessary intellectually and otherwise to even know about the possible existence of a stock market and what that means for society and how that all works. So basically I can tell you, as a person who's gone down to on a molecular level to break down how investing works and all that stuff, I can tell you, do not overthink it. It is very basic if you just do consistent things. That's why Burton Malkiel showed monkeys how to invest back in 1971, and the monkeys made more money than the experts. And that's true. So if you ever get nervous, just ask yourself, am I smarter than a monkey? The answer is yes. The only way you could be dumber than a monkey is by thinking that you're so smart that you're actually doing the right thing by avoiding the stock market altogether. That's where people become dumber than a monkey, because you're missing all this money that's being made. And I just showed you how it's been made, and you don't have to be smart to get a piece of that. Okay, so anyway, let me keep going. Dr. Shani says, I love Grand Theft Auto. Yeah, my wife and I are going to start playing it together. That's our little couples thing. We're going to get together and carjack people and stuff for fun. Just kidding. Not that we would actually do that in real life. Kevin Bernard, what are your thoughts on index universal life insurance? Index universal life is something that is great for, it's better than nothing for sure. It's better than not investing at all. Is it better than investing on your own? It depends. I don't participate so much in index universal life, but I don't think it's a bad move, because index universal life, what it does is mostly these plans, they set like floors and ceilings on how much money you can make. So they have a cap. It might be like 15%, and then they'll have a minimum of zero, a lower bound. So you won't ever lose money, but you can make money if the market goes up, but you can only make up to 15% or something like that. There's usually a cap at the top. And so basically, what I like about index universal life is it reminds me of like the SUSU. The SUSU, that savings method that people use, started in the Caribbean, where people get together as a group and they all save together, and then every few weeks the SUSU gives one person a big payment. SUSUs are not the most efficient way to build your wealth at all, but SUSUs are a hell of a lot better than doing nothing at all. Right? If you don't save it all, like what SUSU does is it forces you to save your money so you can get that lump sum of money, which allows you to make economic moves. A lot of us can't make economic moves because we don't have that lump of money necessary to have a capital base to actually, start that business or buy that first home or whatever, right? So basically, a SUSU is good because it can give you that lump of money. So index universal life to me is in that tradition of a SUSU, except actually better, because you're making these payments, right? And you're getting life insurance and you're getting all these other benefits like disability benefits and stuff like that. But then what's happened is you're also accumulating this cash value, and the programs are pretty fair. I mean, the insurance companies, of course, they're going to get their money, but they're not killing you. They're not. Most of the good companies are competitive. They have to charge a rate that's fair. So a lot of people will do their index universal life over 20 or 30 years, and next thing you know, you've got a ton of money. And remember, that is the first part of, you talk about beating the trap and getting out of the trap. Well, the trap to me, for most people, is the fact that most Americans have absolutely no capital base, no financial capital base at all. And that is a very dangerous place to be, because that means that if your car breaks down and it costs $1,500 to get your car fixed, you're stuck, right? You're stuck with not just the financial challenge, but you're also stuck with all the anxiety that comes with it, all the desperate, difficult decisions that have to be made, all the stress that comes with that, right? So by getting yourself out of that trap where you've got a nice financial cushion, you've really made a massive change in your quality of life, right? And that's again why I keep going back to your children. You got to think about your kids. That's why life insurance is so important. I can't imagine any parent who loves their child who does not have some kind of life insurance. I'm not saying you don't love your kids, but you're not showing it. If you don't leave anything for your kids, then you're not showing you love them, right? And then also, the other policy is you want to give them insurance. The best vaccine against white supremacy is to have a little bit of money in the bank, because a lot of your stress on a daily basis comes from the fact that because you have no capital base, you have to go work for that white man in order to pay your bills, and that's very stressful for all of us. So give your kids, protect them early, right? Go ahead and invest for them, and then they'll be in a much better position because of that. All right, so let me see here. Michael says, is Fundrise a good passive investment for disabled veterans and a small business who can't work too hard anymore? I haven't worked with Fundrise, but I've heard good things about the company. I think it's worth looking at. Yeah. Is it a good passive income? Well, it depends on how much you've invested and things like that. I don't think Fundrise, I think if I'm not mistaken, and you can ask me again next week if you want to, just log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com, leave your question, and I'll research it. Like if you leave me a question to look into something, I will Google it, read up on it, and give you a more informed opinion on it. But with Fundrise, I can only speak on what I've heard. I think Fundrise basically allows you to just participate in investing in small businesses that are out there. And the thing about it is, because I have a few investments in startups and stuff, is it's not very liquid, right? Which means that if you put your money in, it's going to sit there for a while. So that means that you shouldn't really use money that you might need right away. One of the great benefits of the stock market is that it's pretty liquid. So even if you have to sell your stocks at a loss, at least you can get your money like that, right? You can't do that with real estate. You can't do that with investing in a startup. Sometimes it's even harder to get your money out if you start your own business. I mean, a lot of you have businesses that are making good money, but if you had to sell that business in 2 weeks, you probably couldn't do it. It'd be hard to do, or if you tried to, you wouldn't get the money that it's worth. So always think about liquidity. Liquidity is actually more important than ROI. Being liquid is more important than being profitable. Most businesses do not die from a lack of profitability. Most businesses do not die from a lack of profitability. Most businesses die from a lack of liquidity, meaning they can't get cash when they need it. Liquidity is how quickly can I get cash, dollar bills that will allow me to get the things I need right now. So if you can't, so let's say that you get paid in 2 weeks, but you got to pay the light bill by tomorrow. Well, that means you're not very liquid, right? So you might have to go and make some moves in order to get the cash in your hand so you can make that move. Well, a lot of businesses die because of that. They say, hey, we sell clothes and we have $300,000 coming to us in 90 days, but we don't have the money now. So what capital markets allow is they allow for the creation of liquidity where you can then go to a bank and you can show the bank proof that you have $300,000 coming. And the bank might say, okay, we'll loan you, 50 grand against that 300,000, as collateral. So you can pay your bills now until the money comes, right? So it's like giving a thirsty man water. That's why you think about the liquidity analogy actually works. So staying liquid is actually more important than staying profitable. When I was in Atlanta, I went down to the Black House. We have a Black Business School office now down in the Black House. Jay Morrison and the Tulsa Fund built the Black House, and I'm an investor in the Tulsa Fund, and I've enjoyed that very much because I love the Black House. It's a beautiful place. And I was down there, and we went to eat at this really fancy Black-owned restaurant. I forgot the name of it, and it was really crowded on a Sunday. And the guy makes money hand over fist. It was a beautiful restaurant. And so anyway, we came in there, and I think the owner was a Black Business School student or something like that. So I was looking forward to meeting him. But anyway, so I came out and I saw the security guard. He was a big burly man with a big old beard, and I didn't know. I didn't know. I don't know. I just kind of observed him and saw him staring at me. And to be honest with you, it was in Atlanta, and I was getting stared at by another dude. So I kind of look away because I don't know why he's staring at me. I'm like, do you think I'm cute or something? I'm playing. I'm being silly. But anyway, so the guy comes over and he says, "Hey, Dr. Watkins, I got a question for you." And I said, "Oh yeah. Hey, what's going on, brother? What's your question?" And he said, "I have debt." And he said, "Should I pay off my debt before I start investing?" And I said, "What is your debt? What is the nature of your debt?" And he said that some of it was student loans, some of it was credit card debt. I said, "How much do you pay on your credit card debt?" He said, 21%. I said, "Well, that's probably the best use of your money right now because you're paying 21%. In the stock market, you might make money, you might not make money. But if you pay out the credit cards, then you're guaranteed to make 21% because you're avoiding paying 21%. So that was one thing. But then I told him, I said, make sure you don't put all of your extra money toward paying off the debt because you have to stay liquid. That means that if you have a financial problem, you have to be able to solve that financial problem. And it won't be fun if you've applied all your money to paying down debt and your cash is gone. And sure, you might have your credit card available, but sometimes a credit card can't help you solve a certain financial problem. What if you run into a problem that requires cash, or what if your credit card company decides to take away your line of credit, right? So you always want to stay liquid. Liquidity is more important than profitability. Another example is what is it? And thank you for your comment, Marion. I see you in there. I appreciate you. So here's an example. Donald Trump. Donald Trump has had years where a lot of people pretend like Donald Trump is really poor and he's just pretending to be rich. No, if he's pretending, he's done a really good job of pretending it because he's faking it because he's been faking it for 40 years. Then because he's had that big jumbo jet that was his own private jet for like since like the 80s or something. He had the big jet with Trump on the side. So if he's pretending to be rich, he's doing a really good job of faking it. Well, there were years where Donald Trump was deep in debt, where Donald Trump was not, making a lot of money, and he was having some really bad years. Maybe the real estate market, went belly up or whatever. And the thing that kept Donald Trump in that private jet was the fact that even though he was super deep in debt, he always had access to cash. He was always liquid, right? And so he was saying something to Donald Trump Jr. when his son was like a little kid, and they get out of their limo with their big fancy mink coats or whatever in Manhattan, and he says, "Son, you see that bum over there on the street?" And he says, "Yeah." And he says, "Well, we have less money than that bum on the street. We're poorer than he is because at that time he was like $1 billion in debt." So the point there was that he was liquid. He had access to cash. So access to cash is really important. And in fact, if you ask me, one of the biggest things that I think that Black people should be demanding when you talk about politicians that want you to vote for them and stuff like that is to give Black business owners more access to cash, more access to capital. Like I'll give you an example. In real life, we're doing this all Black national convention, which costs an arm and a leg. I mean, it's so much money, well over $100,000 to do this convention. Well, we had to go raise the money in order to do this thing, right? We had to really, really, really dig deep because we wanted to do it and we wanted to do it well, and it's super expensive. Everything costs money. Well, it would be nice if we were able to go to a bank and say, "Hey, can you loan us $1 million so we can go and do this great thing, with our business or with the Black community," instead of actually having to always sort of raise the money ourselves, right? So a lot of Black business owners are in the same predicament where they have a business. Maybe the business is making $100,000 a year, but if they could get access to cash, maybe a $500,000 loan, then they could end up making, $200,000 a year, $300,000 a year, right? So that lack of access to cash and access to capital is critical. Like that's extremely important. So in fact, I just almost don't care about hardly anything else when I think about Black quality of life, because when you have access to capital, you can create empires, you can create jobs. But I almost feel that the lack of access to capital that we have is something I don't know if it's by design, but it benefits those who have economic power, because when you don't have the capital to go start that business or invest in real estate or whatever, well, what do? Well, you have to sell the capital you have. You have to go and sell yourself cheap. You have to go work for somebody because you can't get the money you need to make your next move. Or you have to rent the apartment because you can't get the capital that you need to go ahead and buy a house, right? So that access to capital kind of keeps you in capitalist slavery, right? So there's a distinct effort in America, I believe, by certain people to maintain control of the capital. So you got to pay attention to the capital. Who's got access to the cash? Who's got access to the resources? That's really important. Like you can have a Black kid. If Elon Musk were a Black kid in America, he wouldn't be worth $250 billion right now because he never could have gotten the capital to start Tesla and SpaceX in the first place. In fact, Elon Musk was this close to going bankrupt. He had actually he had $100 million when he sold PayPal. He spent $99 million trying to start SpaceX and was down to his last few dollars, right? Literally within hours, he would have gone bankrupt or something crazy like that. And right at the last minute, somebody gave him exactly what he needed. They gave him a lifeline. They gave him access to capital. They didn't give him his profitability. It took a while to become profitable. They gave him access to capital. So access to capital is literally the same as somebody buying time for you. Money is a financial time machine, right? Capital is a financial time machine, because if I can get let's say I have this idea that's going to make, that's eventually going to make $1 million a year, but it's going to take me 10 years to build it up because I'm doing all the work by myself. Well, if you give me access to capital, I can cut into that 10 years. Things that would have taken me 10 years to do, I can do it in 10 months now because I can hire a team of, 50 really smart people that are going to help me accelerate the amount of work we can do, right? So access to capital, that's where it's at. I'm telling you. So anyway, let me keep going. And by the way, don't forget, the convention, it's allblacknationalconvention.com. That's allblacknationalconvention.com. So feel free to take a look, and we get started on Friday.